Time to burn. Now, you would think, with me living in Texas, I would have been asked to make a custom saddle rack before now, because we are in Texas, we all ride horses, right? No, y'all, that's a stereotype. We don't all ride horses. This customer, they do. So when I got the request, did some internet searching, because I didn't really know what a saddle rack was, and pulled up a bunch along with the picture she sent me, as well as drawings. Now the drawing I will put in the description. You're welcome to use it. It's kind of vague. I'll go over some of the vague stuff in my video and how I did it, but it kind of leaves it open for creativity for you. Also in my description, y'all, if y'all have never checked them out before, I link all the tools I use, videos I mentioned, all that stuff. There's a lot of good info in my description, so feel free to go in there and check that out. As far as the saddle rack, decided to go with pine and dowels. I noticed a lot of the pictures were showing like countersunk screws with those little caps over them. Those caps come off, you know, over the years or whatever, and I didn't want that, so I decided to go with just dowels. Turned out great. I also used some rabbets and some groove joints, so you'll see that in the video, but I hope you enjoy it. If you do, remember to hit that like, subscribe, and if you want notifications on other videos that I do, and I've got quite a few videos. Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, totally forgot to mention, I hit 100 videos. I guess that's a milestone, right? But anyways, you can check out all those videos, and I really appreciate y'all watching. It helps out a lot, and I enjoy the comments as well. Feel free to comment, tell me what you thought. I am also thinking about starting to do a regular live video, either every Friday or every other Friday. I'm kind of him-hawing about it. I don't know. Tell me what you think. If that's something you'd want to see, and it'd be over different subjects. I would probably plan it to be like a 5-minute live chat, but I would go up to an hour if there was a lot of engagement, people asking questions. So if there's any questions you've had on stuff that I make, how I do whatever in my tiny garage, anything like that. I mean, we can go totally off subject, because this is Epeius garage, not Epeius woodworking. I deal with epoxy, all kinds of stuff. Hell, recently I just did a video on how I protected my steel toe boots. Oh, check that video out. But anyways, let's get to this project, and I'll show you how I made the saddle rack. Turned out great. Customer loved it. Thank you, Shannon, for the order, and I hope y'all like the video as well. Now, I wanted these out of solid wood. So what I did is I took some 1x6s and I cut them down to 24.5. Final length was going to be 24, but I did it 24.5. This gives me room to trim them down to the final size later. Once I got these to the length that I needed, then you are going to have to joint the edges in order to get a good clean glue up. So what I do is I run them through my table saw. I don't have a jointer. There's videos out on this, but that's what I did here. And all you're doing is getting the edges parallel to each other so you get a nice seamless line when you do your glue up. I'm using Titebond 2 to glue these up, and you'll notice I'm using 2 1x6s and then 1 1x3. The reason why I did that, if I was to use 3 1x6s and when I cut it down, it would have left some awkward smaller boards in the glue up, and that bothers me, so that's why I did it this way. And my OCD kicks in again when I cut these down to size. I want to cut off 2 inches of this, but I don't want to cut 2 inches all off on one side, so I cut a little bit off both sides to make them more uniform. I just like the way that looks better instead of having awkward board sizes. All right, I'll try to explain this. I had to put a radius on the top, so I maxed out my little compass here. But how I got the dimension is I went off the drawing, and I'll put the drawing up here so you can see what I'm talking about. But it was 9.5 from the bottom and 10.25 from where those are going to be. So I went from there, and then I just used my compass and I figured it out. And really I needed a bigger compass, but this one barely made it. So that's how I got my radius, and you can see, I guess you can kind of see it, but I have my radius right here. And then when I make this one, I'll just use this as the template for the other side. So that's how I put the radius in there. Well, I wish I had a bandsaw, but I used my old Black & Decker jigsaw. Hell, I wish I had a better jigsaw, but this Black & Decker won't quit on me, so no reason to buy a new one. As soon as I was done cutting it, I took my orbital sander with 80 grit sandpaper and I sanded it down to the line, because when I cut it on the outside of the line and sanded it to the line to make sure I met the radius. Then, like I said, the one I cut out, I used it as my template and I cut it out just like the first one. I'll let these dry for a good 45 minutes or so. Plenty good enough for them to hold up. As long as you don't put any pressure on them, they'll be good. Ain't gonna come apart. But this way I can keep working with them. I'm gonna trim them down to size, 24 inches. And then I'm gonna put some rabbets on the bottom of the sides and the ends, and then the flooring is gonna go in there. And I'll cut the bottom to fit the rabbets. Kind of like a box, right? I cut the sides down to 9.5 by 24, and you can do this because it's the final measurement. The only one you're not going to know is the bottom piece. Kind of got to wait till you put it together for that one. Just so I can get all these exactly the same and save me a little bit of sanding at the end, I'm going to go ahead and run these through the planer, taking off very little. And I need to run all the pieces, that way they're all the same size. If I only did the ends or vice versa, then when I set up my dado blades later for my rabbets, it wouldn't work out right. So I'm going to show y'all a little something I learned from Stumpy Nubs. But basically I want to pre-drill my dowel holes. The reason why is this will act as my guide when I'm drilling the holes into the ends. So I'm going to pre-drill these nice and straight on my drill press. Now, to make this easy, I'm going to do 4 holes and 2 inches apart. So what I do is I make these blocks here, 2, 4, 6. This makes it real easy to make your repetitive holes without having to remeasure your board every time. You just add a block. So I'll start all the way up against my stop. I'll drill that hole. I'll put a 2-inch block in there, drill the hole. I'll put a 4-inch block, drill the hole, and then I'll put a 6-inch block, drill the hole. And that'll be all my holes, evenly spaced. Real quick, I can do it on both sides and the other board. I set up my dado stack so it has the same thickness as the material I was using after being planed. You can see I marked X's. That was to tell me where I needed to put my dados, or sorry, my rabbets. Because basically the bottom of this is gonna have rabbets, so I can put the bottom pieces and set it into it like you would make a box. I went ahead and cut the rabbets on the side pieces as well. So basically your end pieces and your side pieces are going to have rabbets. That's going to leave you that little groove cut out on the bottom to set your bottom piece into. And here's the basic setup. You can see I got my corner clamp and regular clamps and just starting to kind of see how it's going to fit up. I didn't get enough dowels. Or actually, I didn't buy any dowels when I went to the hardware store. So I have enough to kind of get this put together. I'm going to do a few dowels on each corner, and then I can get the gist of how this is all going to work. And then I'll run to the hardware store, get some more dowels. But till then, I'm just going to use the existing holes that are already drilled. Those are my pilot holes, so I can drill straight. And I'll put some glue on there. Overall, the whole fit up actually went pretty smooth. I took a little bit of time, you know, clamping it up, putting in the dowels, getting them in there. Made a few mistakes, but, you know, we got through it. It went pretty good. Once I got all the sides and the ends put together, I could get my final measurements to cut out the bottom piece. You have to do this last, and I'm not even going to tell you my measurement because yours would differ because it's all based on how deep your dado or your rabbet is and everything else. So it's different every time, but that's what I did here. And I gotta say, my measurements are good. It was square and it fit perfectly on the bottom. And for the bottom, it was the same process. You know, I fit it in there, used a little bit of glue, and I already had the holes drilled on the side for the dowels. So I drilled those in and I doweled the bottom in as well. I wanted this thing to be rock solid, y'all. The way I made this one, it's gonna leave a couple little spots on the end. See right here? All I did is run me a board through the planer. So I got my thickness. Glue it in there like that. If that makes sense. Just like that. And it'll be nice and flush. It's just cosmetic. Now for the top pieces, the slats that go across it that the saddle's gonna sit on, I already drilled my holes in the center at the ends where I needed them. That was gonna be for the dowels. And then I went ahead and ran all of them, at least the tops of them, through my router, 1/4 inch roundover bit. That way they had a nice smooth edge to the tops of them. As you can imagine, holding these, clamping these down is going to be a little tricky when I start going around the radius. So what I'm going to do, now as you can see, I found center on my board, and I'm going to center up this first board, and then once that board's in place, I'll work off of it for both sides. And again, like the rest of it, I used those existing holes as my pilot guide holes. And I got this first board nice and straight, put the dowels in it and got it set. Then from there, it's easy going. You just move down on each side. I've got this little support in here to keep the width out, because you know wood tends to bow and move all kinds of which ways. So I want to make sure that it's absolutely perfect. I'm excited. This looks like it's, I wonder how many of these I can do at once. I talk about these little spacers so much I ain't even going to mention them. And then that's going to give me my 5/16 spacing. After that, I just made sure all my holes were drilled, dowels were applied, and cut flat. All right, I think it's turning out good if I do say so myself. Everything went together pretty well. I really liked how the strap clamp held everything together. That made this a lot easier putting this on here, because otherwise I don't know how you would clamp it. So if you don't have some type of strap clamp, they're always handy, as you could see for this project. So now the fun part, I'm gonna sand this bad boy. Let's get to it. On this project, I started at 80 to get everything nice and smooth, like the really rough spots, and then I worked my way up to 120, ended it there. Time to burn. I'm gonna tell you right now, customers like this burnt look, especially on pine. This customer specifically requested it, and I do this on a lot of my projects. It really brings out the grain. I know it's not the true Shugibon technique. However, this really makes a piece look cool. People like it. So if you're not doing it, give it a try. See what it does for you. The glue really shows up whenever you burn it. So have your sander ready. Touch up any spots. And for the final finish, I decided to go with lacquer. I sprayed about 3 or 4 coats with the rattle can. I would say it took a can and a half to do this. I linked this lacquer in my description. It's on Amazon. I buy it 2 to 4 cans at a time. It's not that expensive, like $6 a can. And it always comes out fantastic. I've never had a complaint. And the customer was really happy with this, which I'm glad for. And this is a fun project to make. If you got horses around you or anybody with ranches, this might be a good one to make and post somewhere on your social media. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Thanks for sticking around. I'll see y'all next time. Andy out.